It begins with a Neanderthal man named Spear, catching fish in a stream. He uses a spear to catch the fish and place them on a rope. A giant alligator suddenly attacks him as he waits for a fish, and he hides in the water. He takes his fish and begins his journey back to his home. While walking, he hears a strange sound and hides in a tree as a pterodactyl approaches him. It hears a loud roar and flies away. Spear then steps out of the tree and continues his journey. On approaching his home, Spear sees a strange footprint on the ground. He hears a woman scream and rushes in the direction that it is coming from. Spear watches as a group of horned Tyrannosaurus attack and kills his mate and children. He gets filled with rage and throws his spear at one. The dinosaurs stare at him ready to attack, but their mother roars and they follow her. Spear walks into his cave and feels sad as he stares at a drawing of himself and his family. He gets angry as he cleans the drawing and climbs to the top of a cliff. Spear stands at the edge and contemplates jumping off, but he doesn't. Instead, he sits and mourns the death of his wife and children. He sees his wife and kids in the sun as it rises the following morning. Spear catches fish and eats them raw beside the water. A teal Tyrannosaurus emerges with fish in its mouth and runs into a cave. Spear sees it and chases it. He realizes that the dinosaur is a mother and has two young dinosaurs. He clenches his spear, but the horned Tyrannosaurus emerges and attempts to eat Fang's children. Spear gets angry and helps Fang defend her children against the dinosaurs. They kill two of the three dinosaurs, and Spear kills the third by throwing his spear through its chest. The baby dinosaurs rush and play with him but are soon interrupted by the mother of the horned dinosaur. The horned dinosaur hits Fang away and eats her kids. Spear rushes to it as it holds Fang down and helps her. Fang watches as Spear fights the dinosaur and decides to fight with him. He jumps into its mouth and stabs it with his spear. The dinosaur pushes him away, and he falls into a puddle of water. He and Fang fight together, and he eventually gets on her back and rides her. They charge at the dinosaur and use their combined skills to fight it. Spear jumps on it and stabs it through its head. The dinosaur's eyes get bloodshot as the spear goes into its head and out of its mouth. It roars as it falls to the ground and dies. Spear sees as Fang lies in her nest and misses her kids. He walks out of the cave and onto a beach, and she follows him. She lies in front of him, and he smiles as he gets on her and rides her. Spear runs through the jungle as he hunts a wild boar. He chases it around and throws his spear at it. Fang grabs the boar, and the spear hits a tree. Spear gets to his weapon and sees it on the tree. He watches as Fang eats the boar and walks away in annoyance. Later, Spear hunts for more food, but Fang follows him. He uses mud to paint stripes on his body and continues walking. They smell prey nearby, and Fang rushes to it as Fang pushes Spear out of the way. He makes his way to the top of a tree and uses his weapon to kill a running boar. He rushes to the animal but sees Fang eating it. Spear yells at Fang as she eats his food. He walks away and decides to eat an insect that walks past him. Later, Spear goes to defecate, but Fang does so beside him and leaves a large pile. Spear walks through the woods and sees a fruit tree. He climbs to pluck the fruit, but Fang hits the tree several times and pushes him and the fruit to the ground. She eats the fruit, and Spear gets angry and yells at her. Spear sits in a corner in a cave while Fang snores as she sleeps. He uses his fingers to make animals but gets frightened when he sees the horned dinosaur. He gets angry as he stares at Fang but decides to fall asleep. Spear and Fang walk past a waterfall with spikes the following morning. They walk into the woods, and a deer sees them and runs away. Fang chases the deer, but Spear stops him and yells at him. He screams continuously and raises his spear in the air. He eventually stops and walks away, but Fang stares at him. Spear follows the deer and sees it as he hides in a bush. He prepares to attack it, but Fang arrives and kills it. He gets angry, and a fight ensues. Fang breaks his spear and roars at him. He breaks off two branches from a tree and uses them to fight Fang. While fighting, Fang grabs him in her mouth and attempts to bite him but throws him into the water. Spear gets up, but he and Fang hear a hissing sound. They turn around and find a large number of snakes covering the woods. They begin to run away, but a flood follows them and pushes the snakes. The flood catches up to them, forcing them to fight the snakes underwater. A giant snake pursues Spear, but Fang bites and kills it. She goes to the surface and sees they are about to fall off the waterfall. Spear uses the giant snake's body to hold them to a rock, but it slips out of his hand, and they fall. He hits several rocks before he hits the ground and passes out. Fang swims through the water and finds Spear. She takes him to the shore, and he eventually wakes up. She walks to him and coughs up the tip of his spear as a sign of peace. They decide to work together in hunting and catching a wild boar. They warm themselves with a fire that night, and Spear kills a snake that frightens Fang. A herd of woolly mammoths walks through a snowstorm. An older mammoth, severely wounded, walks behind them and struggles to keep up. It eventually loses track of the rest of the herd and trumpets as it tries to find them. The mammoth walks alone and sees some footprints on the ground. It gets on its knees and tries going down the hill, but Spear emerges and attacks it. Fang also emerges, but it pushes Spear away. They stand around the mammoth, and Spear hits its eye several times with a rock. Fang helps Spear push it down as he continues hitting it. He stares into its eyes and feels remorseful as it struggles to get up. Spear eventually gives it the killing blow, and the woolly mammoth dies. He tears off some of its wool and uses it as a coat. They remove meat from the mammoth, and Spear places it on a sledge. He tries getting Fang to drag the sledge, but she refuses and walks away. He then uses its tusk to drag the sledge as they move through a snowstorm. They walk through the storm, and Fang is unable to find Spear. She stops and roars as she searches for him, but he emerges, and they sit on the ground. Spear and Fang see a cave through the storm and walk to it. Meanwhile, the herd of woolly mammoths finds the core of their fallen brethren. Their leader rubs his trunk around the body and realizes its tusk is missing. He roars in anger and sees Fang and Spear's tracks. In the cave, Fang eats the meat and offers some to Spear, but he refuses. He draws the mammoth on the wall and remembers how he took his son hunting. Spear and his son disguise themselves as animals and stalk their prey. He gives his son a weapon and eventually jumps and stabs the animal. It tries resisting, but his son stabs and kills it. Spear places his hand on the animal as it dies, and so does his son. While sitting in the cave, a strange force hits it several times, and it begins to collapse. Spear and Fang run out of the cave as it gets destroyed and realize the herd of woolly mammoths is attacking them. They try to fight the mammoths but are overpowered. Spear rushes to help Fang but is pushed away, and he falls on the leader of the mammoths. It pushes him to the ground and into the debris of the cave. It hears Fang's roaring and rushes to her. It holds her in its tusk and begins crushing her between another mammoth. Spear roars as he emerges from the debris and gets the herd's attention. He emerges with the mammoth's tusk and swings it at them, but they don't retaliate. He gives the tusk to the herd leader, and it takes it, and the herd walks away. The herd walks to the burial site of their deceased brethren. They place the tusk on the ground and sway as they rub their trunks on it. Spear and Fang run as a swarm of velociraptors pursues them. The raptors begin attacking them, but Spear kills them as they continue to run. A raptor bites Fang's leg, and she hits it away with her tail. The swarm continues to pursue them as they enter a crop field. They emerge from the field and are circled by the raptors. The sun goes down, and the raptors suddenly run away. A blood moon rises, and Spear and Fang continue moving. They walk through a mist and eventually see several pillars with skulls. The strange pillars startle Spear, but Fang ignores them and continues moving. They walk through the field and realize that they are being watched. They hide behind a rock and watch as a feral man walks towards them while carrying a boar. The man slips and falls, causing him to break his knee. He begins roaring for help, and several feral people emerge. One rushes to help the injured man, but a strange animal flies down and grabs him. Spear decides to help the man and carries him and the boar to their cave. The feral people crawl into the walls, and the flying animal, a giant bat, emerges and hits him out of the cave. It stares at him and prepares to attack, but Fang attacks and decapitates it. Several giant bats emerge, and Spear picks up his weapon and fights them. One tries to grab him, but he stabs it through the mouth and kills it. He sees several giant bats lift Fang into the air and stops them. One eventually carries him while Fang kills some others and pursues it. Spear struggles to free himself but hits his head on a rock and passes out. Fang arrives at the giant bat's cave and sees it as a vertical hill. She tries climbing it, but it is too steep, and she falls to the ground. She stares at the bats that fly out of the cave and gets an idea. Fang roars at them and pretends to be dead. The bats fly to her and carry her into the cave. They place her on some dead animals and fly away. Fang gets up and moves around the cave in search of Spear. She sees a tunnel with cobwebs on the walls and realizes people are inside it. A giant spider emerges and walks to her. The giant spider attacks Fang with its webs and tries pulling her to him. She bites its leg as it slams her into several walls. She finds Spear, and he frees himself from the webs. He grabs a rock and attacks the spider, but it hits him away. He sees a dead dinosaur, takes its horn, and stabs the spider's head with it. The spider dies, but they see a swarm of bats approaching the cave. Spear gets an idea and runs to the spider. He enters its mouth and pulls out the web from it. He wraps the web around Fang and pushes her out of the cave. Spear slows their descent, and they run away as the bats realize the spider is dead. The bats reach Fang and Spear, and they kill them. Spear sees the crop field, and they lure the bats inside. The raptors attack the bats in the field while Spear and Fang make their way out and run away. Spear and Fang walk through the jungle, searching for food. They arrive at a beautiful stream, and Spear smiles as he stretches. Fang drinks water, and a butterfly flies around her. She follows it to a swarm of butterflies, and Spear enters the water to catch fish. He uses his hand to catch a bunch and gives some to Fang. He sits on the ground, and Fang makes a paw print beside Spear's handprint. An earthworm emerges from the ground and startles her, reminding her of the snakes. She runs away, and Spear eats the worm. Spear enters the water and decides to swim deeper. He looks at Fang and smiles as he tries to prank her. He sees strange figures walking and doesn't find Fang as he emerges from the water. The footprints lead into the woods, and he gets knocked out as he searches for her. He eventually regains consciousness, but the ape man knocks him out again. Later, Spear regains consciousness and finds himself tied beside Fang. An ape man with a staff emerges, and several apes stand as they prepare for their strange ceremony. It climbs a platform and orders for the ceremony to begin. The apes fight themselves, and a blue ape faces a large one in the finals. It uses its skills to defeat it and wins the fight. The ape men lower Fang, and the man with a staff pours a drop of a strange drink down a bath and into the ape's mouth. The ape begins mutating and grows into a larger ape. Fang frees herself from the ropes and tries fighting the ape, but it knocks her down. Spear watches as she is in trouble and struggles to free himself. The ape breaks her leg, and Fang rushes to it and punches its eye. It throws him away, and he climbs the platform. Spear pushes the ape with the staff away and drinks the strange liquid. Several ape men attack him, but he begins to mutate and pushes them away. He jumps to the giant ape and fights it. Spear rips its arms off and beats it to death. The ape men get angry and attack Spear, but he kills them. They realize he is too strong and try to run away, but he pursues and kills them. Spear massacres the ape men and kills all of them. He gets up the following morning, and the effects of the liquid have worn off. He rushes to Fang and sees as she doesn't move. Spear holds Fang as he cries. He roars in anger and sadly walks away. Fang begins coughing blood, and he runs to her. He realizes she is severely injured and rushes to some bags of water. He takes the water to her but realizes that vultures are flying around. He feeds Fang the water and pours some on the ground to make mud. Spear uses the mud to cover her injuries, and more vultures arrive. He covers all her injuries as the vultures fly around them. Spear tries to carry Fang, but she is too heavy. Spear sees several bamboo sticks and a bunch of vines. He grabs them and finds a sharp rock, which he attaches to a stick and forms a weapon. He makes a space behind Fang and begins tying the bamboo together to form a bed. He tries to push her onto the bed, but she is too heavy. He eventually gets her on the bed and dodges the vultures that attack. Spear picks up the bed and walks through the jungle while dragging Fang. He stops after walking for a long time and caresses his hands. He goes to a stream and gets water which he gives to Fang. While feeding Fang, Spear sees a wild dog staring at him. He gathers sticks and makes fire around Fang to protect her. He sits beside her as she falls asleep and keeps watch. The following morning, Fang wakes up and realizes he fell asleep. He looks around but sees that no one is attacking him. He continues moving but ties the bed to himself using the vines. He walks into the woods and sees several wild dogs following him. Spear sees a cave ahead and enters, taking Fang inside. He chases the dogs away and stares out the holes. He crawls out of a hole and sees the dogs watching him. Spear makes fires surrounding the cave that night as he watches Fang. He falls asleep, and a swarm of flesh-eating beetles attack him. He sees them moving on Fang and pushes them away. He tries stabbing them but realizes their shell is strong. Spear turns the beetles around and stabs their stomachs. He kills them and roasts them, serving them as food to Fang. The following day, Spear feeds Fang and steps out of the cave. He senses the dogs and uses several rocks to barricade the cave. A while later, the wild dogs walk around the cave and search for a way to enter. Spear returns and fights and kills some dogs. He enters the cave, and Fang tries to stand as she sees the injuries on Spear. He calms her and makes her lie down. He sees the beetles and uses them as weapons on his knuckles. Spear steps out of the cave and sees the dogs. They rush towards him, but he fights and kills them. Fang breaks out of the cave and helps Spear fight and kill the dogs. They both roar as they defeat the dogs and are covered in blood. A herd of Brachiosaurus move through the forest and eating grass and trees. A Brachiosaurus goes to a tree and eats the fruit from it. A strange dinosaur emerges from the woods and appears to be crazy. It runs around, and the Brachiosaurus tries to ignore it. The dinosaur looks sick, and it bites the Brachiosaurus leg. The Brachiosaurus kicks it away, and it coughs up blood and dies. It walks to a pond and eventually appears as sick as the previous dinosaur. It drinks water from the pond and begins vomiting blood. The other dinosaurs stare at it as its eyes become bloodshot, and it goes crazy. The Brachiosaurus runs around and crushes the dinosaur's eggs. It attacks the herd and kills them as it roars. One tries running away, but the infected Brachiosaurus catches up to it and pushes it to a tree with large spikes. Meanwhile, Spear and Fang arrive and find the dead Brachiosaurus herd. They wonder what could have killed the herd, and as they stand, the infected Brachiosaurus stands behind them. It roars at them, and they run away from it and into the woods. The infected dinosaur follows them as they run and breaks the trees that block its path. Spear jumps on Fang's back, and she runs as fast as she can. The infected Brachiosaurus chases Spear and Fang and gets stuck as they slide down a hill. It breaks the tree and crashes to the ground as they run and hide in a cave. The infected dinosaur gets up and moves around, and Spear and Fang lie on the floor. That night, Spear has a nightmare where he and Fang are attacked and bitten by the infected Brachiosaurus. His skin falls off as it bites him, and Fang melts. Spear wakes up and looks out of the cliff. He sees the infected dinosaur lying on the floor, and Fang stands beside him. He decides to leave the cave and convinces Fang to follow him. Spear and Fang walk down the path beside the hill. They pass the infected dinosaur and see warts, and as they walk away quietly, it gets up and attacks them. They run away as it pursues them, and Spear gets hit by falling rocks. He continues running with Fang as the dinosaur catches up. They evade it as it gets stuck between two walls. They watch as it struggles to break free and walk away. They continue walking and arrive at a lava geyser field. The lava splashes and touches Spear. The infected dinosaur breaks free and rushes to the geyser field. It breaks the ground and falls into the lava as Spear and Fang run away. They fall on the dinosaur and are shocked that it's still alive. Fang saves Spear from falling into a hole in the ground, and they exit the geyser field. The infected dinosaur begins to burn as the fire consumes it, and Spear and Fang watch. Spear and Fang walk through the woods to a strange green light. Spear sees a strange symbol on a rock, and they watch as a strange tribe ties a man to some rocks above the green fire. A pterodactyl flies and lands on a hill with a humanoid creature on its back. The creature hovers over the ground and moves to the man. It transforms into a being with horns, and a green snake moves from its eye into the man's mouth. The tattoos on the man move to his stomach, and as it makes its way out of his mouth, he rapidly grows old and dies. The snake enters the being's mouth and turns into a baby. It removes the baby and gives it to a woman. The pterodactyl spots Spear and Fang, and the being uses its eye to spot them. It yells at the people and instructs them to pursue them. Spear and Fang run away but get separated. A woman uses her strange abilities to put Fang under her control while Spear runs around. She uses Fang to capture Spear, and they tie him to their rock. The following morning, Spear wakes up and sees the woman passing by with Fang. He screams at her, and the spell begins to wear off. The woman tries to place the spell again but sees Fang resists. She opens a portal into Fang's mind and sees her babies hatch. The woman watches as Spear helps Fang defend her kids, but they get eaten by the horned dinosaur. She steps out of the portal and hugs Fang. She looks at Spear and decides to look into his mind. She watches as he raises his newborn child and eventually sees as they are killed by the same dinosaurs that killed Fang's babies. The woman steps out of Spear's mind and reinforces the spell. She stares at Spear with a sad look and returns to her home. The woman sees a drawing of her kid and sees her memory of how she received a child from the strange being. The woman plays with the child as she walks through a flower field. The child wanders away, and the woman eventually sees that she has fallen off a cliff and died. Another woman comes to her house and gives her a bowl containing the green paint used for the ritual. The woman gets on Fang and goes to Spear. He roars at her, but she draws the symbols and rushes away as she sees a butterfly land on him. That night, the strange being arrives on the pterodactyl and moves to Spear. The woman climbs the kill and uses a spear to kill the pterodactyl. Fang emerges and tries to attack the being as she frees Spear. The being transforms into a wolf and fights Spear, but the woman transforms into a hawk and fights. Fang stands in front of Spear and carries him as she runs away. The being bites the woman's hand and throws her to the ground. It growls and kills the woman, and Fang is released from her control. The woman reunites with her daughter in the afterlife and is happy. A saber-toothed tiger walks through the forest. It suddenly begins to growl as it sees a strange animal in the shadows. The creature attacks the tiger. Meanwhile, Spear and Fang sit by a fire and hear strange sounds. The next morning, they walk into the forest and see the tiger's corpse. Fang roars as he sniffs the corpse, and they continue moving. They keep walking, and the sun gradually sets. That night, a herd of ceratopsians walk through the woods and are attacked by the mysterious monster. The monster kills several ceratopsians as they try to run away. Spear hears the noise and screams as he picks his spear. He decides to intervene, but Fang stops him and roars at him. It refuses to let him intervene, and they sit by the fire and listen to the screeching and wailing noises from the dinosaurs. The following morning, Spear and Fang hear a strange noise as they are at a stream. They brace themselves for a fight but see a small dinosaur, and Fang chases it away. Spear climbs to the top of a tree and sees the site of the incident. He feels bad for not intervening, and they continue walking. Spear and Fang face strong winds as they walk. They are forced to stay behind a rock as the winds blow. They suddenly hear a loud screech and wonder what it is. They sit by a fire that night and fall asleep as the fire goes out. They hear the screeching sound and wake up and brace themselves for battle. Spear is covered in sweat, and Fang's heart beats rapidly. They hear the creature moving towards them and begin running. They run into thick fog and prepare to fight the mysterious creature. The mysterious creature attacks them, but they dodge and run away. It pursues Spear as he runs through the fog and destroys trees. Fang stands still but suddenly attacks and injures the creature. He and Spear roar as they are motivated to continue fighting. The creature shrieks in pain, and the sound is deafening. It rushes to attack Spear, but he swings his weapon around and accidentally makes a spark that chases the creature away. They realize that the mysterious creature is afraid of light and use it to their advantage to fight it. As the sun sets, Spear and Fang pursue the creature and set several trees on fire. They trap the creature in a ring of fire, and Spear throws his spear at it, causing it to burn and die. Spear and Fang stand in water and catch fish. Fang catches a giant fish, and Spear throws his back into the water because it is too small. He tries catching more fish but sees as they swim away. A strange woman emerges, and a Liopleurodon attacks them. It drags Fang into the water, and Spear helps him and kills it. He runs out of the water, pursues the woman through the woods, and sits in front of her. Fang roars at her, and she runs away. They continue pursuing her. They eventually reach her, and Spear stops Fang from growling. Spear and Fang sit on the ground in front of the woman. He starts a fire, and the woman uses it to warm herself. Fang continues growling, but Spear stops her. He leans on her, and they fall asleep. That night, the woman sees the moon and does a strange prayer as Spear quietly watches. They wake up the following morning and continue walking as the woman follows them. She bumps into Fang as she isn't looking, and Fang roars at her. A giant bug flies around her, but Fang eats it. They catch an animal and eat it raw. The woman walks around and gets the ingredients. She uses a turtle shell to cook the food. She offers some to Spear, but Fang eats it and runs away. She gives him another piece, but he doesn't like it and throws it away. The woman performs the strange prayer that night, and Spear watches. The sun rises, and Spear watches as the woman struggles with the restraint on her neck. He drags her, and Fang bites it off. He uses a rock to break off the shackles on her hand. The woman stares at the sun and smiles. She looks at Spear and introduces herself as Mira, but he walks away. Mira follows them as she gathers supplies. They hunt a large animal, but Spear misses his shot. Mira uses an arrow to kill it and leaves them in shock. They roast the animal, and Mira tries talking to Spear. He doesn't understand her, and she uses a stick to draw on the ground. Mira speaks her native language and depicts how her people were attacked and forced into slavery. She depicts a strange man with horns and shows how she ran away. They continue their journey, and Fang is scared of climbing some rocks. Spear yells at her, but she refuses to climb. Mira runs into the woods and gathers several bugs. She uses them as bait and makes Fang climb the rocks. That night, Spear draws the moon on the sand, and Mira lies down and falls asleep. Spear and Fang wake up the following morning and see several ape men. They abduct Mira and run with her as Spear and Fang pursue them. Spear picks up a makeshift hammer, and they see several ape men dead with arrows. They see footprints on the ground and hear Mira scream. They run to the shore and watch as a ship with the same symbol on Myra's head moves away. Spear stands and says Myra's name as the ship moves away, and Fang roars. The end. Thank you for watching. Check out these other videos and make sure to subscribe and tap the bell to be notified about our latest videos. See you next time.